Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. And I hope everybody in the New Orleans area has finally gotten over their Jazz Fest hangover, and what a fantastic fest it was. Hey, from Jimmy Buffett, who got on stage with Dave Matthews, and it was a great, great show and great, but that's not all. You know all the great acts they had here. You had the Stevie Wonder, and then on to Widespread Panic, Earth, Wind, and Fire, to Snoop Dogg, to Tom Petty, and of course, local legends Harry Connick and Aaron Neville, to Sunday's closers. That's right, the legendary Funky Meters, Funky Meters, whatever you want to call them, and of course, Trombone Shorty, who has taken the Neville's brothers spot as the closing act on the big Acura stage. But from the big stages, as you see right there with Trombone Shorty, to the smaller ones, you know, like the Fay Do Do, the little ones like that, like the Jazz and Heritage Tent. I love them all. To the Gospel Tent, the Blues Tent. Hey, and how about all the great food? The crawfish you see right there, boiled, or crawfish Monica, crawfish bread, everything you want. They had such great food, as always. But it is over, so till next year, get your rest up. And I know everybody's looking forward, but the festivals aren't over. Boogaloo's coming up. You got festivals all the time in this city. But just like the festival being over, I believe the intrigue in the NBA playoffs for many of you might be over as well. Although we have two series still deadlocked in the second round, the Rockets and Spurs, well, they're 2-2, and the Celtics and Wiz, they're also 2-2. How about the other two teams, though? The Cavs and Warriors, my goodness, are they just on a collision course? They're 16-0 between the two teams. That's right, they have swept two series each, and they are destined possibly for a third straight NBA Finals. This is starting to look a little bit like the Celtics and, of course, these great series with the Celtics and Lakers from the 80s. Maybe this will continue. We'll see. Hey, bad news, though, for Saints fans. In my opinion, one of the 3 or 4 most valuable players on this team, center Max Unger, had foot surgery this week, unfortunately. And he might start the season on the PUP list, that is physically unable to perform. Hopefully that's not the case. They're saying that's not definite, but man, this hurts to start the season already like this point. But at the moment, Senio Kelamete, who's kind of a jack of all trades, plays mostly guard, backs up center, even tackle, you can slide him in there. He appears at this moment to be the best option until Unger gets back. Hey, after 2 weeks of heavily promoting the Kentucky Derby on this show, you know how much I love the Derby. I love horse racing in general. Well, the 143rd Running for the Roses is in the books. And Always Dreaming is the winning horse. By the way, Always Dreaming ended up being the favorite right at the end. Bernie Halpern told us to look out, though, for the jockey John Velasquez, and he was right. Velasquez and trainer Todd Pletcher, hey, they both won their second wins in the Kentucky Derby, their first ones together, though. But for the 5th straight year, this is mind-boggling me, for the 5th straight year, the favorite has won the Kentucky Derby. I would take the field every time, and I'll lose, except for American Pharoah 2 years ago. College baseball had mixed results, though. Locally with UNO, Tulane, and UL Lafayette, they all won just one of their 3 games over the weekend. But the two teams with the best records out of all the local teams, Southeastern and LSU, they both won their series this weekend, 2-1, with the Tigers doing it in exciting fashion. Antoine Duplantis, you see celebration there. 10th inning walk-off hit to beat South Carolina that series. There's 7 SEC teams literally within 2 games of first place. It's going to be fun. Next week, though, I got to tell you about the show we have. Carl the Mailman Malone. That's right, the second leading scorer in NBA history. Only trails Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. More points than MJ, Kobe, and Wilt. He is coming on this show, as well as Will Wade, the brand new coach for the LSU basketball Tigers. And oh, by the way, I have the governor. That's right, not a nickname. The real governor of Louisiana, John Bel Edwards, is coming here as well. He's going to join Karl Malone and have some fun. But next, this show right here, I'm fired up. I've got Nebraska quarterback Tanner Lee. That's right, Jesuit, Tulane. He is now the starter there. Saints, Mike Triplett. He's the beat writer for ESPN. Soccer coach for the Jesters. That's right, it starts tomorrow. Kitty Farrell and James Martin, saxophone deluxe. Next on Primetime Sports. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Primetime Sports. And hey, sometimes you can go back to where you were before, and that's what we're doing. A little over a year ago, I had Tanner Lee from Tulane at the time. He was still a student at Tulane. He had just made his decision to transfer. He was trying to decide between a few schools, including LSU and Nebraska, and he chose to go north, where it's a little bit chilly. So he is a Cornhusker now. So we're revisiting this. He just got out of school. He's going to go back in a few weeks for summer school. But we're going to talk about it because he just got named the starting quarterback after spring practice. And in Lincoln, Nebraska, that is a big, big thing. I've always said this. If I had to pick the school that was probably the best from the mid-'70s to say the mid-2000s, like around early 2000s, I have to say Nebraska would probably be that school if I was forced to pick just one. And he is now the quarterback for that team. Welcome back to the show, bro.
Thanks for having me.
Former Jesuit star, obviously. You went to Tulane, got to start there a couple years, and now you're in Nebraska. Yeah. Well, tell me about the experience so far. Yeah. You've been there a full year.
Yeah, I think you really can't beat it. You know, the fans there, the tradition, you know, the stadium, just everything that comes with that program. You know, especially the fans. You know, they're one of a kind.
They are.
It's been a great experience.
Well, let people know. I know your girlfriend goes to LSU. You've experienced that. I mean, Tulane's a little different, obviously. But what's it like compared to, say, an LSU, which is pretty rowdy itself?
Yeah, growing up, I went to a lot of Saturday nights in Death Valley. And I think that's also unmatched. You know, they don't lose games at night. But, you know, going to Nebraska and experiencing that, it's just a whole different deal. You know?
Nebraska, when I think of quarterbacks, and traditionally in the day, I mean, you obviously weren't even born for some of this. I think a lot of running quarterbacks.
Yeah.
They've had a lot of that in the past. Mike Riley, obviously the head coach, he's kind of a passing guy. What do people say, like, when you walk around on campus, because you're the quarterback at one of these big football schools? That's got to be a big deal.
Yeah, and you could tell that you know, everybody recognizes you, knows who you are, but they're excited about the new offense. You know, getting away from the triple option of the '90s and moving into a little bit more of a passing attack. And I think they're excited to see us, you know, push the ball down the field, score some points. We got a new defensive coordinator putting in a 3-4, so it's going to be an exciting year.
Hey, nothing against Tulane, but you came in at a time, there was obviously transition. It seems like every 4 years there is transition, but they had a passing offense. It's just that you didn't probably have the weapons you do now. I know Tulane had some really good players. A lot of times you were running for your life. Talk about what it's like to play with these kind of athletes, because Nebraska pretty much has its pick of the litter.
Yeah, I think the recruiting level is different, and I think that just comes with the territory. And, you know, it's been a lot of fun. And you can see the guys there. We have hundreds of recruits that are coming to the spring games and are just wowed by, you know, just everything Nebraska has to offer. It's such an easy sell, and it's a lot of fun to see.
Speaking of that spring game, we have some shots of you in that game. Talk about that experience, because, I mean, I don't know if they completely packed the house there like Alabama does, but talk about it, and what was it like to be on that field with so much history there?
It was a huge blessing. So there's over 78,000 fans there. They showed up from the first second that they're allowed in the stadium, and you know, it was a lot of fun. It was the most fun I've had in a while after sitting out a year. You know, finally to be back on the field playing football, running with the starters. You can't beat that.
Talk about the eligibility thing, because I know your dad, we talked a year ago, and they were trying to get you that extra year. Kind of explain to people how that worked and how it ended up.
So there's a rule within the NCAA that so basically I didn't have a chance to, you know, be successful at Tulane anymore with the coaching changes and you know, a number of things that had to happen, criteria, and you know, we were able to capitalize on that, and I was afforded another year of eligibility.
So you have 2 more coming up?
2 more years to play.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, and talk about that quarterback battle, because good news for you, but maybe not so much for the guy you were battling, Patrick O'Brien. Were y'all neck and neck going in, or what was it like before? And then obviously you were named the starter afterward.
Yeah, well, open competition, dead even at the start. He's a great quarterback, a highly recruited guy.
From where?
California.
Okay.
And real good player, big kid. And we just kind of went at it, made each other better, really competed every day. And the coaches were, adamant upon, bringing it every day. You have to compete. You got to show us that you deserve to be the starter. And, ultimately I won that. And, I got better because of it.
Well, you're 2 for 2 on these, because I think when you came into Tulane, you were a little bit of the underdog, at least in people's minds, because they had a guy named Nick Montana who really wasn't as good as his dad, but still he had a big name, and he had already been to a couple schools, including Washington, I believe. So you had this quarterback battle, and you won this. What's it like for the guy that doesn't win it? I mean, seriously, what does he do?
I don't know.
I don't know what that feels like.
I've enjoyed the competition.
Yeah.
I've never had to shy away from it, and like I said, I feel like it makes me better. I feel like at the end of every competition, I've always been the best that I've been.
Right.
And so I look forward to that. I like it.
Well, let's talk about regrets at Tulane, because obviously you went there, and obviously you're in a much better situation now. I think most people would say that, and I think Tulane fans might get upset at me, but it is a fact. Any regrets about what happened and went on there? Obviously, Curtis Johnson's no longer there either. You're a hometown kid. You wanted to do well for your school.
Yeah.
You started well, but it was a circumstance that was a little tough. There was no blocking many of the time. So talk about your experiences there.
It was tough, but I will say that, I don't regret any of it.
Right.
The things that it taught me, the adversity that I went through, playing through injuries and, taking tough losses, being on the road in big crowds and just getting your butt kicked is tough sometimes. And, I think it's made me a better player. It's made me tougher. That's made me more mature. It's made me a better leader. It's all the things that I carry with me now, and it helped me win the job in Nebraska.
All right, now I want to talk about last year's starter, Tommy Armstrong. You're replacing him, very good quarterback.
Yeah.
Talk about your relationship with him and going into this season with Mike Riley putting his trust into you.
Veteran guy, a lot of experience, great player, great athlete. He was able to, extend plays and eliminate sacks really completely from our offense. And, I learned a lot from him, just what it takes to handle being a quarterback in Nebraska, a lot of things we were able to talk about. And, he handled everything with class. He played with heart.
Right.
The guy was just a great player. And I think he's going to get a shot in Minnesota to play receiver.
Sure.
So that's real good for him.
Hey, by the way, Mike Riley, though, I remember talking to your father you were there. You were actually walking on campus with Mike Riley at that moment, and he was telling me about it. What made you attracted to him and his offense and wanting to go up to Lincoln?
Originally just seeing his track record, especially at Oregon State with Sean Mannion. He's the all-time leading passer in that conference, and that's very attractive right off the bat. You love to see that, and then the camaraderie that he had with all his coaches. He's just the nicest, most genuine guy you really want to play for. And, I still feel that way. Every day I want to wake up and work hard for Coach Riley because you don't want to let him down. You just love the guy.
What are you looking forward to most next season? If it's a game, is there one circle? But just in general, going into the season, this is a big deal. Like I said, 78,000 at the spring game. I imagine, how much does that stadium hold?
A little over 80,000. So it was almost full during the spring game. But I'm really looking forward to just the first game, getting out there and playing again. And
who's the opponent? I don't even know.
Arkansas State.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll go to Oregon the next week. And then, so there's a lot of big opportunities out there that I'm excited for.
So you're going to Oregon.
Yeah.
Have you been to that stadium?
No, but I know exactly what it looks like.
It's small in attendance-wise, compared to like the big boys, but it is as loud as I've ever been.
Yeah.
For a thing, I think it's only like 50-something thousand, maybe 48 even. Okay. But boy, it is loud. That's got to be a kind of experience for you because you grew up in your era with the Ducks obviously having the Nike influence, and they've got big backing. So tell me what that's going to be like.
Like I said, it's just a big opportunity. I'm excited to go out there and
nationally televised. That's a big deal.
Walk out in a well-known stadium like that, and the great college football atmosphere, and be able to compete at that level is it's going to be great.
I hope that I have that game because I do games with Tim Brando in the fall with Fox, and I know we have Big Ten and Pac-12. That would be awesome.
Nice.
If somehow I could get on that
work.
one. It's going to be fun. Yeah. And what else is going to be awesome? The ball you signed last year, unfortunately, I no longer have it with Ricky Jackson and Deuce McAllister and all the rest of those guys, but we got a new one for you.
Nice.
And, hey, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Enjoy. I just dropped the pen top. There you go. Tanner Lee. Congratulations, man. Everybody down here is rooting for you. I know your Jesuit folks are. Heck, the entire Catholic League, and I'm sure the entire city of New Orleans. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Hey, we're coming back. Hey, don't forget, like I told you in the open, we got next week, we have Karl Malone, the second leading scorer in NBA history. Also, the new LSU Hoops basketball coach, Will Wade. We'll get to know him. But also, we're going to get into politics, but not politics. I have the governor of Louisiana, and I'm not here to talk about fiscal budgets or health care, any of that. We're talking sports with him as well. All that's next week. But coming up next, Saints fans, this is your time. I'm going to have a nice long segment with Mike Triplett, the ESPN Saints beat writer. We're going to talk about all things about draft, free agency, and what are they going to do with some guys that, how are you going to replace Brandon Cooks? I've got a lot of questions for Mike coming up next on Primetime Sports. Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. I want to thank Tanner Lee and wish him the best of luck up in Lincoln, Nebraska. Hey, my next guest, I know a lot of you are waiting for this one because I hear it on Twitter. Once I put Mike Triplett's name up there, they're like, yes, Scott's got a great guest. Tune in. So, hey, we're going to talk all about the draft. Mike Triplett, of course, is the ESPN Saints beat writer, and he, by the way, he is now a TV star. You see him doing reports from Saints camp and sometimes from the Dome and games. But, man, he got some primetime exposure. He was on that 3 or 4 hour mock draft that ESPN did. They brought all their ESPN beat reporters and acted like they were the spokesman for the team. And it was kind of fun because the Saints had 2 first-round picks, so he got to get up there twice. And now, what's it like going from print to TV, man? Because I think you're going to leave all your friends behind.
I don't get that same reaction on Twitter that you were talking about.
I think you do and you don't know. No, I got to be honest with you. They always love anything Saints related in this town.
Well, yeah, look.
But, Mike, you're the guy.
That has been really popular. ESPN, it's my 4th year doing that now, but to put a beat writer in every NFL city, look, it's absolutely the way to go. NFL is king in every city, but especially New Orleans, yeah.
No, I don't have to do it again. My producer said, you want to do it again because you left me hanging on the handshake? I'm good. I'm going to let everybody know Mike's leaving me hanging. But how much fun was it? Would you have rathered the 2 guys that you said? Obviously, we knew Deshaun Watson wasn't going to last till 32, right. But in that draft scenario, you had to take the best available.
I had to call an audible in my mock draft on that ESPN show you were talking about and take Deshaun Watson at 32. Because I just wasn't going to let Deshaun Watson sit in the green room for the good of the entire production.
Yeah, you can't let the 32 picks go without him.
It ended up being a pretty smart pick because, as the Saints revealed, they would have taken Pat Mahomes in round 1 at number 11 if they didn't get Lattimore. So quarterback was a very realistic possibility, and I think I presented that well if you were reading me and following me before the draft.
Oh, I do it every day, baby.
This is where the Saints are in their life now. They're ready to take a quarterback if it's the right quarterback.
Sure.
But they don't have to. And obviously, they almost took Pat Mahomes at 11. But when they didn't get Mahomes at 11, they had 6 picks in the first 3 rounds. They didn't force themselves to take a quarterback. It has to be. They're in this stage of Drew Brees' career where it has to be the right guy, and it almost was with Mahomes, but then ended up.
I think most people consider this a defensive draft going in. There's a lot of talent at the corner position. You had some pass rushers, and then all of a sudden, literally 8 of the first 11 picks are skill position players. I'm talking about 2 running backs, which you expected those to go, Fournette and McCaffrey. Yeah. But I don't think anybody expected those 3 receivers and 3 quarterbacks to go.
Well, the Saints must have been doing high fives in the draft room. It was the receivers especially. I figured a couple quarterbacks would probably go, at least 1.
But 3.
But for all that to happen and the Saints to be like, we get our pick of defensive players. Yeah, they also could have taken the defensive lineman from Alabama who fell, and everybody was excited about that.
Jonathan Allen,
it was absolutely a dream scenario for the Saints. But look, they say it every year. This guy was higher on our board, blah, blah, blah. But Marshawn Lattimore, I totally believe he was in the top 4 on their board. And
we will believe them on this one.
A lot of other people said the same thing. You read that Monday morning quarterback where they were inside the draft room, and at one point John Lynch is like, man, I'd love to trade up for that for that Ohio State corner.
How about the situation with Reuben Foster? Because I was telling everybody, listen, I know he's had off-field issues, but I didn't think he dropped to 31, and I'm like the whole time when he gets to 20, I'm like, oh, he's dropping, maybe, just maybe. And it's like when I waited several years ago when I was a youngster waiting for Rod Woodson to follow the Saints.
Yeah.
And if you're an avid Saints fan like me, you remember the Saints were picking 11 and the Steelers were picking 10.
Yeah, I remember that story.
And we ended up with Sean White a night, and they get him. That's what I feel about Foster. I was like, this guy is a human missile, and I don't want to talk too much about what could have been.
Right, but look, that's what this draft was. I mean, I said that right after the draft.
Yeah.
It was a good, solid draft for the Saints. It was almost an incredibly dramatic one. Can you imagine if they went Mahomes at 11, Reuben Foster at 32, and that almost happened? What was interesting about the Saints with Foster is he had the medical concerns, too, with the shoulder. So there was some character and medical, and that made him fall. But the Saints would have absolutely taken him at 32. What was interesting about the Saints is they were like tying themselves down in the draft room, saying, "Do not trade up in round one." They wanted to trade up for Lattimore.
They had their hands behind the back
because they really believed in the depth of the second and third rounds of this draft class. So time will tell if that was a mistake or not. But I feel bad for poor Ryan Ramczyk, the offensive tackle they took at 32, because now he's going to be compared to Brandon Cooks, the guy they traded for that pick, Reuben Foster, the guy they almost got with that pick, and Malcolm Butler, the guy they didn't trade for. And they like Ryan Ramczyk. They had him graded in their top 15. It's why they didn't trade up. But he's a right tackle, so he's not going to be as glamorous as those guys he's going to be compared to.
But you know what? You need that. And if he pans out, you got Armstead and him hopefully for a long future. I'm excited about it personally because I know you need protection.
A lot of people had him rated as a top 20 player, and they got him at 32. So.
Well, you led to my next question. You didn't even know it. I wasn't going to touch the draft completely yet because I wanted to ask the burning question to me. Brandon Cooks is one of, only two other receivers, Antonio Brown and Odell Beckham, that have the numbers 1,100 yards and 8 or 9 touchdowns behind the last couple of years. How do you replace that production, and let me know your thoughts on who and why and how?
Right. Well, I totally believe in the Saints theory, which is the same one when they traded Jimmy Graham. Trading away Brandon Cooks is going to hurt. He's very good. But they're going to have a top 3 offense this year.
Right.
A top 3 passing offense especially. And overall,
I knew
look at their running
backs.
backs. Look at their running backs. The Max Unger injury really hurts. But the offensive line is solid. The running backs are solid. Michael Thomas is a great number 1 receiver. Willie Snead, Ted Ginn are good 2 and 3 receivers. Drew Brees is a pretty good quarterback. Sean Payton's pretty good at coaching offense. They're going to have a top 3 offense without Brandon Cooks.
Always do.
So I'm okay with the philosophy behind that deal. Now, Brandon Cooks is going to do great in New England, and Ted Ginn Jr. is not going to put up Brandon Cooks' numbers. But the Saints will have a top 3 offense. Well, Michael Thomas is going to be a stud.
Will he be the Saints' first Pro Bowl receiver?
I think there's a very good chance. I just wrote about that this week, and we just went. I had the Fantasy Football Summit at ESPN, and he's going to be drafted like what you call a wide receiver 1 in fantasy too. They ranked him 7th overall because, as I reminded them there, and as I wrote, I think Michael Thomas is very, very similar to Marcus Colston in size, in range, and he can get to the balls here, he can get to the balls here, red zone target. But Colston spent half of his prime with Jimmy Graham.
Sure.
Michael Thomas doesn't have that. Kobe Fleener's not going to get 16 touchdowns in the red zone like Jimmy Graham once did. So Colston's second year in the NFL, he had over 1,200 yards. He had 98 catches. He had 11 touchdowns. So that kind of production can exist in the Saints offense, and I think that's the kind of season Michael Thomas
I have to ask you about Adrian Peterson because there's a twofold question because obviously we know he's one of the greatest of all time, and if you go to Twitter, it's either like they're excited or they're like, he's a has-been. I'm like, by the way, he just was the NFL's leading rusher 16 months ago. Okay? So I know he's had another knee injury, but he's shown he can come back. And I actually helped represent a player that actually came back twice named Garrison Hurst to have 2 comeback players of the year.
I covered Garrison Hurst with the 49ers.
Yes, and he was great. Actually, people said his second knee injury, he's done. Yeah. Can Adrian Peterson come back? And by the way, how will Mark Ingram handle this? Because we've seen Mark Ingram get a little upset when other people vulture touchdowns.
Well, there are a couple different answers to that question. I agree that the fans could not buy into what you're selling on Adrian Peterson. They could be skeptical. But they only gave him $3.5 million guaranteed. It's a little more than they would have paid Tim Hightower to keep him. Maybe twice as much as they would have had to pay Tim Hightower to keep him. But if those are your expectations, he can certainly exceed that. I think the name Adrian Peterson is bigger than the risk they took with this deal.
Time.
They paid him like a number 2 running back.
Right.
So if he's a number 2 running back, great. If he's more than that, even better. You're right, though, that this Mark Ingram had really earned number 1 status, and I think when Mark Ingram was upset last year, he never said exactly why, but I think maybe he wanted to go to the Pro Bowl. And maybe that's a status he wants to reach. He did have his first 1,000-yard season, which meant a lot to him. But he's valued very much
and
internally.
he got in as an alternate, didn't he, in the Pro Bowl?
The year before, yeah.
Okay.
He didn't play this year in the Pro Bowl. But,
right.
So I can understand Mark Ingram being like, I finally am a number 1 running back. Right, and now you're bringing Adrian Peterson in.
I get it.
But look, Ingram and Tim Hightower coexisted. I think the relationship is going to be exactly the same as that. The draft pick of Alvin Kamara might take away some pass catches.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Ingram
that's
is
what
going to get.
Because now you traded up, or you trade your second rounder from next year to get Alvin Kamara.
Playing with Adrian Peterson and Alvin Kamara is nothing compared to earlier in his career when he was playing with Pierre Thomas, Chris Ivory, and Darren Sproles. So he's at least used to the idea. And he's handled it very well. His ego has never really gotten in the way. Some fire on the sidelines.
Yeah.
But everybody has
love Mark Ingram.
Everybody's always said he's handled it in the locker room. He's really become a beloved leader on that team. So, look, unless he's sitting on the bench and all his carries are going to these other guys, as long as he's still playing the same role he's played the last couple of years, which is what I expect, I think he'll be fine.
I'm going to roll through some positions here because I want to get to, hey, is Nick Farrell as important as any free agent they got? Because they re-signed him, and I want to kind of use that with him and Rankins together.
Yeah.
Talk about getting him back and using him with Rankins.
A little bit. I mean, the only reason that everybody wasn't desperate, like they got to keep Farrell, is because of Rankins, and they play the same position, and David Onyemata plays that same position. But look, they can make Davison's more the nose, but they can make room for all those guys on passing downs. I think Rankins is going to be a stud. I think Farrell's going to be really good. And it's good that they can rotate those big bodies inside. So what they didn't get in that edge rusher, which has got to be the biggest disappointment of the offseason, they do have that interior pass rush in both Rankins and Farrell.
All right, well, I'm going to talk about some other new guys on the line because you got Alex Okafor, who I love coming out of Texas. Yep. He kind of wore a linebacker number over in Kansas City, but it's pass rusher. He's going to be hopefully going to go against upside of Cam Jordan. But you also have Haoli Kikaha, who's those knee injuries. Once again, you don't know what you're going to get. And you drafted a couple guys. You didn't get the rusher everybody thought you were going to get in the first round, but you got Trey Hendrickson, who, to Tillier at least early on in February, said, look out for this guy. Yeah. And then also the unknown is Al-Kadim Muhammad. Right. So kind of throw that whole group in.
Well, that's what it is. It's a whole group now. Look, it was the most obvious need. In February, I thought maybe they'd throw $18 million a year at Jason Pierre-Paul. That's how big the need was for them. And it didn't work out. And I understand why it didn't work out. I went through this in the article, and I'm like, the only thing I can't say is what they should have done.
Right.
Should they have paid $9 million
for
Jabal Sheard? Should they have paid $9 million for Jabal Sheard? Should they have drafted Derek Barnett instead of Marshawn Lattimore? I don't think so. So it's tough. I do like Alex Okafor's potential quite a bit, but it's still a guy who's going to have to prove it and have the best year of his career. Haoli Kikaha is going to have to stay healthy. Trey Hendrickson's going to have to be a late third-round pick who blooms. It's a lot of ifs. It's a lot of ifs, and it's disappointing because it's such an important position. But if you've shored up your secondary, if you've shored up the interior defensive line,
you shored up your
linebacking core, then it maybe gives some of these ifs an opportunity to rise up.
I mean, by the way, are we ever going to hear from Stephon Anthony again? Honestly. I want your opinion because they brought a bunch of linebackers in. I'm not sure who plays whose position. I know some are interchangeable, but how do you look at this
he's
linebacker
obviously
core?
Been marginalized here. They haven't cut him. Maybe he has a training camp to be night and day. We saw it with Andrus Peat last year. But I don't see the opportunity for Stephon Anthony. It looks like they've given up on him based on how many middle linebackers and strong side linebackers they brought in.
A couple injury guys I have to ask you about. P.J. Williams, gruesome injury last year, concussed in the Giants game. I know they got, obviously, a linebacker in Lattimore. They have Bro. Yeah. Does he have a future? And then kind of also with Max Unger, you touched on it.
Right.
What's this mean for the team coming
corners, I also love Sterling Moore, who they re-signed. I think he's a great number 3 who can fill in as a number 2 when needed. So I'm penciling P.J. Williams in as the number 4 corner right now. But obviously he had earned that starting job out of training camp last year, so he's got that potential to be even more. And I think he'll be healthy. He's had a lot of time to recover from that concussion. Max Unger, look, when I talked to somebody yesterday, they said the report that he's definitely missing the start of the season. They said it's too early to say that. I know there was another report out today that the Saints expect him back in the preseason. So he might miss a couple games. He might miss the first month. But at least it looks like he'll be back in time. But look, obviously that's going to hurt. I hadn't done my rankings this year. We've talked about rankings before.
Yeah.
He's probably in my top 4 best, most important players on the whole team. So that hurts.
I said top 3 yesterday, and it hurts. It does hurt. But we do talk about this because we always differ a little bit. And I'm on board with you.
You're not ranking him ahead of Cam Jordan, are you? That was one of our big
debates.
debates.
That was our deal. You remember that. Not anymore. But Teron Armstead and him are interchangeable. Teron Armstead, I have to see a
tied for 3. Unger and Armstead. All right, that's
By
fair.
the way, brother, take your beautiful wife from Homa.
Yes.
This will get you started on a meal.
We like this spot.
Chez Delachais. It's awesome. Did you go?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Appreciate Mike's from Iowa, and hey, Cubby.
Go Cubs.
Congrats on your Cubs, man. In fact, I had you on right before I think they did that, so congrats on that.
Good,
and we
I'll
love
come back
down
on
here.
right before this year.
And we hope you stay. All right, brother?
All right.
Mike Triplett. We'll catch him sometime. Maybe when he gets back from training camp, he'll squeeze us in before the season starts. I'm putting the pressure on you. Hey, I want to thank him, obviously, Tanner Lee, too. But, hey, coming up next, you know I love music. And I've got one of my favorites, a guy that used to be in our house band. He used to be the saxophonist for Trombone Shorty, but he's come on and done a lot more since then. He's with the Soul Brass Band, as you know, but he's also got his new project, the James Martin Band. He's singing now, not just on the sax. He's coming up next. And don't forget, you soccer fans, I've got Kenny Farrell, the head coach for the Jesters. Their season starts tomorrow night, and they're home on Saturday. Coming up next right here on Primetime Sports.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my, oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lanes, the home of rock and roll.
The owners of the Delachais Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachais, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachais, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. Wow, that was a jam-packed little segment with Mike Triplett talking about all the Saints' needs, previewing the upcoming season and the player battles, of course, as well as the draft and free agency. But next, we're moving to music. I've always said this. This is a sports and entertainment show. We've had artists like Frenchie. We've had restaurateurs like Dickie Brennan. We're even having the governor next week. But I love having musicians, and I've had at least a dozen or more, and one of them who's coming back for the second time, he was part of our house band. That's right, he was part of the MFG and Soul Brass Band, still in Soul Brass Band, former saxophonist for Trombone Shorty, who ended up closing out the fest, and now he's on his own as well. He's got lots of projects working, but this is a brand new one, and I love it. I saw him on News with a Twist. This is called the James Martin Band, like Dave Matthews Band, James Martin Band. And by the way, something's got to give. And now he's putting a lot of his vocals singing, and he surprised me, quite frankly. He's phenomenal. And I can't wait to have him on again. Welcome back, brother.
Yeah, thanks,
James
Dad.
Martin. And I remember Jerry Moran, who I did see at the fest this week, was the first to tell me, because I knew Derek, and Derek brought his people from that band, MFG, on. And then I get a call from Jerry. He's like, dude, you realize what you have in your house band in James Martin? He's only the best saxophone player in town. I was like, all right. So welcome back, my friend.
Yeah. Actually, Jerry did the cover to that album. We did that in the back of his house. He had
I've been to that house.
Some old slates that he found.
Jerry and I were a little league on a team that went 126-1, literally over a 3-year stretch. True story. The best team ever.
What was that one loss? Who was your nemesis?
I've just knocked it out. I don't know. I think it was Will Clark. Will Clark's team beat us once, but we beat them 3 times in that same process. Moving forward, let's talk about you. I want to hear how you went from doing, obviously part of band, and now you're fronting your own band. I think this is exciting.
Yeah, well, it's always something that I've wanted to do. I write my own material, arrange different cover songs, and for the past few years now, I've really been developing my own stage show.
On the twist right there.
Yeah, look at that. It's a good shot.
I've seen you. It is good. You do get into it. You're passionate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I put everything into it.
I'm going to say this, though. Rummel grad, correct? I think I remember that. Loyola as well. You got the Catholic League background here going up. And you're all about New Orleans. You stayed in New Orleans. Talk about what your career has done from leaving college to where you are now, because you're still pretty young.
Well, I'm still pretty young, but I started pretty early.
Right.
When I was at Rummel, my senior year, I started playing with Trombone Shorty. We were going to NOCA together, and so my career started then. Actually, that was the first jazz.
He was Troy Andrews back then, right?
Yeah, well, he's still Troy Andrews.
Right, exactly.
But that was actually my first year playing the Jazz Fest. 2002, so exactly 15 years ago.
How great is that? How old were you then?
I was 18 years old, like a fresh 18 too.
And I had already been going to the fest for 20 years at that point.
It was a great experience, especially when I went back to class the next day and students would come up and say, "Oh, I saw you perform at the Jazz Fest." I was like, "Wow, you paid that much money and you saw me play on the stage."
Isn't that pretty cool, dude?
So
I mean,
I
seriously.
felt pretty cool, yeah.
And now they say, "I saw you on Primetime Sports."
You would be surprised how many people come up to me and say that, believe it or not.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Well, you're the third person that said that today. Finally, I have 5 viewers now. No, but I want to talk about what's coming up for you, because one of my favorite festivals, I'm actually going to be out of town that weekend, but we are coming back earlier than I want, because I've not missed since I moved back 5 years ago, the Bayou Boogaloo.
It's one of my favorites.
I love it.
Yeah.
And listen, this is, if you haven't been to this, and I have no connection to the Boogaloo, I'm not getting paid, I just like the vibe. They're on the Bayou St. John. You're on the water. You have all the boats you see right there.
Oh, yeah.
Rolling. It's just a fun time, and it's growing, but it's not obscene growing. It's still a fun thing where you don't have too many people.
Right. I love the festival. It's become one of my favorites, not just to perform, but also just to hang out. I always like the French Quarter Fest and Jazz Fest, but sometimes the crowds can be too much for me.
No doubt.
And, the crowds are getting bigger at Bayou Boogaloo, but it's more of a local crowd.
And it's free.
And it's free.
Right.
And, they got a lot of great food vendors out there, and the music's superb, so it's a great environment, great atmosphere.
We don't have a ton of time left, but when are you playing in it so people can know?
Sunday, May 21st, which is
but
just in a week and a half.
What part of the day?
11 a.m. So,
perfect for us, though. I've been going to the fest early, which is something I never used to do. And I get back Saturday evening, so I get to see you at 11 a.m. By the way, check them out. I'm telling you about this album we put up there. And I see your name right in the middle there, James Martin Band. It kind of sticks out in that third line right there. But check this album out. I'm not even joking. I'm not going to just sit here and promote something that I don't like myself. I love it. He's got a lot of soul, and his vocals are tremendous. So you got the whole package, James, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time on my show.
Yeah,
and hopefully one day, when we get a bigger studio again, maybe we can do the house band thing again.
I'm looking forward to it.
I would love it. I'd love it. We're growing. You're growing. We're all growing. Hey, I got one more segment, though. Soccer fans, I know every time I put Kenny Farrell's name on Facebook, it seems like I get 60 responses. So he's next right here on Primetime Sports. Welcome back to Primetime Sports. And I know a lot of these people out here that my friends, every time I put anything about football or soccer, I get more response than anything else. And that's right. For the second time in a couple months, I have the head coach for the New Orleans Jesters. And the reason I'm bringing him on today is because the season starts tomorrow. That's right. The Jesters and Kenny Farrell, the head coach, go on the road. He's leaving right after the show. They play Shreveport tomorrow. But the first home game is this Saturday. And we're going to talk all about that and more. I'm going to get in some history of soccer and just have some fun, a little MSL, a little EPL leagues. And we're also going to talk about some moments that Kenny remembers. But welcome back to the show. I got tons of response.
Thank you.
Last time you were on. By the way, here's your team there.
Beautiful.
Little Heineken in the back. And Kenny, he was a native of Ireland and the head coach. Well, we had you on last time. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Did anybody say they saw you here?
Oh, more. I was shockingly surprised.
All four viewers saw you?
I was shockingly surprised how many people watch this show, to be honest with you.
You were surprised, huh? Me too, actually.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that. Hey, by the way, let's talk about what we left off last time, because as a kid, you were talking about it. I said, listen, I grew up with Pele. I think he had just signed with the New York Cosmos, obviously. And I asked you, to me, and I'm not a soccer guy, obviously, but I do enjoy the beauty of the sport. I said, is he the greatest? And without question, you said yes.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe so, because when he played in his time and with the skill he had, the level of effort in was amateur, not very good, and he was taken out in every game, and he still produced the performances that he produced. This day and age, fantastic players, Messi, even going back to the 80s with Maradona, great players, but more protection from referees. And I don't know how they would have stood up the way he stood up in his era.
He was such an acrobat, too. I mean, it was artistic beauty watching him, as I say. There you go. Great producing back there. Look at those thighs, man. I mean, that guy had some power.
Yeah.
What made him great?
Well, his relationship with the ball, his quickness to see the field, his quickness to execute. I suppose the best way to put it to you remember Magic Johnson and people like that. They just saw everything before everybody else, and they were able to deceive people and just move the ball so quickly. As a soccer player, he was the first one to do that I remember, and I think for most people, and he was just the genius. He was just special.
I love the term, the relationship with the ball.
Yeah.
That reminds me of like when you say, hey, does he explore the space on a soccer field better than everybody else?
Yeah, well, he knows where it is. He sees things quicker than everybody else. But remember, soccer is a game where you have to have a relationship with the ball. You can't use your hands.
Right.
You know, from the time
unless we have somebody that apparently did use their hands from France, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Right. I don't want to hear about him.
All right. Well, hey, by the way, you mentioned Maradona, and that's another guy. Obviously, the 70s is when I remember Pele, but I think around the 80s is when Maradona from Argentina became big. He's kind of become a caricature of himself, but as a player, he was one of the best of all time, right?
Yeah, I think he's the closest, in my opinion, and a lot of people might dispute that to Pele. And,
look at that mane.
Absolute genius.
Look at
low
that
center of
mane.
Gravity. His body was just so strong. And again, it's that thing about the relationship with the ball and seeing the field.
And he's
quick.
obviously, from the looks of it, he has now become a cartel leader. There's some shots I could have used that he absolutely looks.
He needs to keep paying the bills.
Yeah, do what you got to do. Down in South America, we ask no questions. All right. Speaking of South America, speaking of Argentina, there's a guy now, Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
How would you rate him today? Is he the best, or is he just among the best?
I have a hard time splitting Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi and figuring out who's the best. I kind of wonder if I plucked them out of the situations that they're in right now and put them with lesser players around them, who's going to actually be able to win games at the top level.
That's a great way to explore it, though.
Yeah, and I just believe Ronaldo has the edge on him, in my opinion.
Well,
looking at it in that light.
Speaking of Cristiano Ronaldo, obviously he really is hurting on the looks department. But the fact is that that's funny because I don't know much about soccer, and those are the first two guys I thought of, which is hence why we see the pictures. What makes Ronaldo so good?
Well, again, his dedication to the game ever since he was a youth, his just ability to split teams, at the highest level. Even when his team is probably on the back foot and they're still in the game, you can't take your eyes off him. He's going to win the game. He's going to win the game for you.
All right, I'm going to say one thing. I'm going to go back to some more recent history than, say, Maradona and Pele. But I remember when World Cup play was starting to get a lot of action. You've watched it your whole life. But in America, I think the 90s. And I just remember Ronaldo, the other Ronaldo from Brazil. This guy just was a beast on the field. Am I wrong in that? And he had also another Brazilian, Ronaldinho.
Yeah, Ronaldinho.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, absolute geniuses, both of them. I don't put them in the same class, to be honest with you, the players that we were just talking about. But both of them, I mean, nobody would not have them on their team at any level. I mean, you're just talking about the players you've just mentioned. I mean, are just unbelievably good. They're just gods of the game.
Now, speaking of gods of the game, is it just that he's good looking, why he's popular, or is David Beckham as good as people say he is? Because Unfortunately, none of us can really compete in that looks department, but is he as great a player as he is a model and all that?
Well, he may not have been appreciated the same way in the United States as he was in Europe, because his game is very different.
The girls certainly appreciate
his game is very different. You know, his ability to distribute the ball and his variation of passing and being able to score. I mean, the way he can make a ball bend, first of all, around.
Bend it like Beckham.
Oh, he can strike a ball 60 yards and put it, you know, on a golf tee. It's incredible. And his ability to change the game that way. You never see him tackle or head a ball. If you do, he's usually fouling someone.
Real quick on Americans, I got to get to this. The greatest American of all time, in your opinion?
The greatest American soccer player?
Yeah. Because I have choices. Landon Donovan is one that people get mentioned. Claudio Reyna. Dempsey's playing now. Or what about one of the ladies, Mia Hamm or Abby Wambach?
No, I think it comes down to, I mean, you make me think about this. It comes down to either Tim Howard or Landon
Howard.
Donovan.
I had him ready too. All right.
Tim Howard or Landon Donovan. Reason being is they are the closest players that the United States have produced to being world class. We still haven't produced
Howard,
the world class
goalie,
level.
Right?
Yeah, and but both of them again are game winners for the national team at the highest level against the highest level in the world. So when you think Tim Howard, what he did in the English Premier League, and you think of what Landon Donovan has done in World Cup events for the United States, those two are probably on a par, one at each end of the field, one stopping goals, one scoring goals.
I keep adding 5 minutes to our segments, and now I realize I need to add like an hour, because, I mean, they're telling me in my ear. All right, I got to get this. Your most memorable moment in soccer. For instance, if you say, hey, Scott, you're a college basketball fan, what's game that comes to your head? I'm going to say 1992, Duke and Kentucky, and Christian Laettner's shot.
Yeah.
What's the thing that comes to your mind first?
Oh, Ireland-Romania, World Cup.
Ireland-Romania?
Last 16 of the World Cup. David O'Leary scoring the...
1990?
90, yeah.
Of course, I remember it as well.
Yeah, well, Packy Bonner there, they just saw the
Bonner, the goalie.
Yeah, I actually played some games with his brother, actually, in the League of Ireland. But he makes this save, and it's the last 16 of the World Cup, and then all the pressure's on this guy, this tiny nation that has gone all the way in the World Cup, and David O'Leary steps up and scores the goal.
They drank some Guinness that night, huh?
So did I.
So did I. Well, hey, by the way, I have to say this.
I drank some Heineken.
Heineken? There you go. Heineken. I'm sorry, Heineken. Sponsor. What about the moment that you just like, oh my God, and the Saints have like thousands of them, but what's one for you in soccer that you just won't ever forget?
Well, I think this went worldwide. It has to be Thierry Henry and the playoff game between Ireland and France.
Oh, he cheated. Look at his hands on there. That's in that World Cup when he had his hand on the...
Well, the worst part that got me is like, he handled it, he stopped the ball, then he patted it back for someone to put it in the net.
Right.
But what happened from that point on was, he went off and celebrated like it never happened.
Right.
I mean, I would have put my head down, but, and walked away. And then his celebration was huge after it. It was so disgusting to watch.
Well, he kind of did a faux apology to everybody in Ireland, basically making fun of y'all.
Well, the interesting part about it is that everybody was pointing to the Jumbotron and saying, look at this, look at it. But the referees can't do anything about it. They've already given the goal. And they can't watch that. They can't watch that. So.
Before we get into MLS and English Premier League, which I'm not positive we have time, we have to save that for next month. I got to get to Jesters, because you guys are starting your season tomorrow in Shreveport, but your game is home. I want to talk about some of the players, your team. Let's go there. Talk about your first home game this weekend. Where is it? Let people know.
Well, generally in our division, the rivalry between Chattanooga and the New Orleans Jesters is huge, and Chattanooga are one of the top teams in the nation. So it's going to be a big game on Saturday night. We've brought in some new players from overseas, and we have some of our best local players coming through. So it'll be a blend of that, and hopefully we can put on a great performance.
Well, Kenan Armbrust is the guy you mentioned first to me. What makes him special?
Well, I saw him first playing in the Combine in Los Angeles last January, and he really impressed me over there. And since he's come in training, I was looking for a wing-back, an attacking full-back, and he's really impressed me in training, and I can't wait to see him on the pitch. I watched 3 or 4 games last year of him playing, and I think he should be playing at a higher level, and hopefully we can push him on maybe to Major League later on.
By the way, you have a couple guys. We talked about that before, Tarbush and Tarbutton. What's his name?
Which one?
2 guys that are in the MLS right now that play with...
Yeah. Andrew Tarbell.
Yeah, Tarbell,
goalkeeper.
Right.
He went on to San Jose Earthquakes.
And then the guy from
Patrick
Jesuit.
Mullins.
Yeah, from Jesuit, right?
He's with DC United right now.
Speaking of Jesuit, you have 2 more guys that are from Jesuit, one a lot more recently the other, Chase Rushing, and obviously Jordan Rice. Talk about those guys real quick.
Yeah, well, the life cycle of our team is 3 to 4 years when you come in. This is going to be Chase's first year. He's done really well in training, and technically has been superb. So let's see if he can work his way into the team. Very good player. And then the other one was a former Jesuit player, Jordan Rice, who's coming back probably for his final year. But I'm really looking forward to him. I mean, he's grown leaps and bounds. And he's another player I think can move on to the full professional level, if he really wants to do that and he's in the right place. So I'm very excited about both of them.
I love your mix of local and foreigners. And you got, guys from the West Coast, you got guys from here, but you also got guys from overseas.
Yeah.
And one of them, his dad's a legend, Mason.
Yeah.
Mason and his dad,
yeah,
Paul
Mason
Walsh.
Yeah. Mason Walsh was with Bournemouth for 2 years. He was with us when he was a 17-year-old, went back, signed a pro contract in England with Bournemouth, and then through injury kind of lost his contract. They didn't renew it, so he's back over playing for us now. And his dad, he comes from a good, line. His dad played for England, played for Liverpool.
He's a commentator. There he is right now.
Played for England, Liverpool, and Tottenham. He's a great guy. He's the funniest guy in the world to be around. He was, a legend in his day.
So are soccer players like horses? He comes from a good line? I love how you said that. All right, we're going to talk MLS and EPL,
we're talking soccer, baby.
This Saturday, please get out there. Please get out and join us. I got a great gift certificate for you. Go enjoy that.
Beautiful.
Shays right on Maple between Carrollton and Broadway.
Thanks
By the way, we will, I promise, have him on. I told you I needed a soccer correspondent, and bingo, he showed up at Yale College several months ago, and now we have him every couple months. Shocker! I've never been to that place. Anyway, great spot. And by the way, Rock and Bowl, Yale College Inn, they do promote this show. Hey, coming up, I got to close this show out. That's right, we are done. Don't forget next week, though, the governor of Louisiana, John Bell Edwards. I've got the second leading scorer in NBA history. That's right, more points than Kobe, more than Michael Jordan, and more than Wilt Chamberlain. Only less than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. His name is Karl Malone. He's a Louisiana native. Look at those guns right there. He's great. He's going to be here as well. And also, we're going to have the new head coach from LSU basketball. His name is Will Wade. So that's all coming up next week. I want to thank everybody. Thank you for watching this great show. I want to thank all my great guests today. Also, William Hill, my producer. He does such a great job. Kenny Juno, he lets me hear. He's got that audio thing working. And Josh J. Smooth is a jack of all trades. The Redhead Tsunami, Ron and Jim from WLAE, Ashley and Jeff from CST. I want to thank everybody. Have a great week. We got a blockbuster coming for you next week.